You're watching this special coverage on the Finance Bill 2024. The protest in the aftermath of this morning's parliamentary group meeting at State House in Nairobi of the Kenya Kwanza Alliance that was chaired by President William Ruto, and to which we are going to be looking at some of the concessions that were made by members of the Finance and National Planning Committee of the National Assembly, whose chair, Kuria Kimani, had addressed the Kenya Kwanza parliamentary group meeting earlier in the morning at State House. You also had the presser by the Azimio Coalition political party members of the National Assembly, his Tarehe constituencies Amos Mwago and his Embakasi East counterpart Babu Owino, who have condemned what they term police action on the protesters, calling for the immediate release of the protesters who were arrested by police and have been taken and booked at various police stations across Nairobi. And you are seeing also the live pictures coming to you from Parliament, where the members of the National Assembly are streaming in for the crucial afternoon, and also the police deployment at the Nairobi Central Business District since morning to break up the protests that was codenamed Occupy Parliament. This is in relation to the Finance Bill 2024, to which the organizers of the protest had termed as containing punitive taxation measures, which they said will further push many Kenyans into poverty. And that includes the proposal to have had 16% value-added tax on bread that has since been removed by the committee, which had concluded its sittings over the weekend and this morning briefed the parliamentary group meeting of the Kenya Kwanza Alliance. It is a crucial day and a day filled with events, starting off with the PG at State House and the protest in the Nairobi Central Business District, and the proceedings from the National Assembly that will be underway shortly, and the police presence that is evident across most parts of the Central Business District in Nairobi. Several arrests have been made, and the opposition has called for the release of all persons they said have been protesting peacefully, as the Constitution guarantees them that right. And this is in relation to the opposition and some of the contentious proposals that were contained in the Finance Bill 2023. The chairperson of the Finance and National Planning Committee, Kuria Kimani, will be tabling that at the National Assembly shortly for the second reading. But even as the team presents its report, members of the National Assembly will still have to vote for the changes to take effect. Will they listen to the people? Was this a matter of concession or reason prevailing upon members of the committee who concluded their public participation exercise Monday at the Kenyatta International Conventions Center, where the chairperson of the committee had pledged that all the submissions that Kenyans made before the committee will be factored in during the final report, saying that this isn't a cosmetic exercise, but one that will take into account the presentations that were made by Kenyans before his committee that has since concluded its sittings, retreated for report writing, and they will be tabling that before the National Assembly. And there are changes that have been made that we'll be shortly having here, including the soundbite from what happened at State House in Nairobi. The National Assembly, Moses Masika Wetangula, is taking his seat at the National Assembly, and the business will be shortly underway at the National Assembly, where this crucial report will be debated by members of the National Assembly. On the split end, you are seeing the live pictures from Nairobi Central Business District, where protests are still underway since morning, and this is the growing opposition by the organizers of this protest against the Finance Bill 2024, which they had termed as not focused on uplifting the lives of Kenyans from what they termed as the depths of despair to heights of economic hope, saying that this is punitive and that the government is inconsiderate about the welfare and the plight of Kenyans, and therefore there was need to relook at some of the proposals. And the chairperson of the committee this morning had issued the news conference from State House in Nairobi in the aftermath of the parliamentary group meeting, and one that was equally chaired by President William Ruto and also attended by the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, and to which some of the proposals as contained in the bill have been dropped or either reviewed. But the opposition says that this is not enough and much more needs to change as contained at the moment in the Finance Bill 2024. And you are seeing the twin coverage of the Nairobi Central Business District and the National Assembly, where all eyes will be on the members of the National Assembly over the Finance Bill 2024, and a parliament that has been less impressive when it comes to the plight of Kenyans and lawmakers, with no regard for their political affiliation, causing up to the authorities of the day when it comes to balancing between public interest and what the executive or the occupant of State House at any given time, whoever the president is, wants. And you're seeing members of parliament still streaming in to the National Assembly to take up their seats ahead of the second reading and the report that will be tabled by the Finance and National Planning Committee of the National Assembly. And Kuria Kimani, the chairperson of the committee this morning, had said that the committee had resolved to remove the 16% proposed value-added tax on bread, saying that this is staple food for a majority of Kenyans, and therefore there are going to be far-reaching consequences in terms of affordability, and this may end up affecting many families and households across the country. On the value-added tax on the transportation of sugar, the chairperson of the committee said that that has equally been removed. Also, value-added tax on financial services and foreign exchange transactions has also been removed, according to the chairperson of the committee. There is also no going to be increase on mobile money transfers charges. The 2.5% motor vehicle circulation tax has also been removed, according to the chairperson of the committee. Excise duty on vegetable oil, according to Kuria Kimani, has also been removed. Levies on the housing fund and social health insurance will also become income tax deductible, which then means that the levies will not attract income tax, putting much more money into the pockets of employees, what the presser, the lawmakers termed as increasing the disposable income of Kenyans. According to him, it is also crucial to note out that the eco-levy is being levied on imported finished products, according to the chairperson of the committee, who had addressed that press conference that was attended by members of the Kenya Kwanza Alliance, saying that therefore this will not attract the eco-levy as earlier proposed in the bill, and that locally assembled and manufactured goods will help boost Kenya's manufacturing capacity, therefore the aspect of job creation and more money into the pockets of Kenyans, and in that aspect also talking about the disposable income. The chairperson also said, consequently, in this regard, locally manufactured products, including sanitary towels and diapers, phones, computers, tires and motor vehicles will not attract the eco-levy. And there was much heated debate about this, especially from stakeholders who appeared before his committee during the public participation exercise. The threshold of the value-added tax registration has been increased from 5 million Kenya shillings to 8 million. This therefore means, according to Kuria, that many small businesses will no longer need to register for value-added tax. The responsibility of electronic invoicing, ETIMs, recently introduced by KRA, has been receded from farmers and small businesses with a turnover of below 1 million Kenya shillings. Excise duty imposed on imported table eggs, onions and potatoes, also to protect local farmers, have been dropped. Excise duty on alcoholic beverages will now be taxed on the basis of the alcohol content and not volume. The higher the alcohol content, the more excise duty it will attract. Consequently, according to the chairperson, alcohol manufacturers are expected to make safer and cheaper alcohol. There is also the pension contributions exemptions to increase from 20,000 Kenya shillings per month to 30,000 Kenya shillings. The parliamentary group meeting also informed that adequate funds of 18 billion Kenya shillings have been provided for the employment of 46,000 junior secondary school teachers who are on internship, and this is going to be on permanent and pensionable terms following the protest by the junior secondary school teachers who are on internship. Funds have also been provided to hire 20,000 interns next month. The policy is now to transition teachers from internship to permanent and pensionable terms. According to the chairperson of the committee, President William Ruto informed the parliamentary group meeting that the executive and legislature will continue making the right decisions no matter how difficult they are or unpopular. He pointed out that last year's proposals in the finance bill, now an act of parliament, have led to tremendous progress. The president, according to the chairperson, also commended national institutions for working effectively in a democratic Kenya. The National Assembly has changed the finance bill that was prepared by the executive. This is as it should be, according to the chairperson of the Finance and National Planning Committee of the National Assembly. And on your screens at the moment are protesters who have organized and codenamed their protest today, Occupy Parliament along Kenyatta Avenue in the Nairobi Central Business District. And there were multiple meeting points of the protest, according to one of the organizers, Boniface Mwangi, yesterday, and that included Kencom Stage, Parliament Road, and also other key areas that they said will be the source point of the protest against the finance bill, which according to them will have or contains punitive taxes, and that the government should review that. The opposition also said that this is not enough and therefore there's need for more amendments to the report by the Finance and National Planning Committee of the National Assembly, which will table the report for second reading at the National Assembly, where the proceedings are at the moment underway following the streaming in of the members of the National Assembly and the Speaker, Moses Masika Wetangula. The committee's reversal of the proposed taxes on bread, cooking oil, motor vehicle and financial transaction and eco-levy come after a series of presentations, a majority rejecting the proposals contained in the finance bill when they appeared before the committee after the conclusion of the public participation exercise. This is also a group of Kenyans gathering near the Supreme Court, and this is the protest in relation to the finance bill, and they are coming out this morning to protest against what they term as no justifiable reasons for the government to increase taxes, saying that they are already overburdened and squeezed household budgets and continually slimming pay slips as a result of taxes that were imposed following the 2023 finance bill that was passed by Parliament and now an act, and the finance bill 2024. Now the stage is set down for a showdown at the National Assembly as Kenyans plan, and the ongoing protests at the moment you're seeing on your screens. This as the lawmakers begin the debate on the finance bill and the protests that are ongoing across Nairobi. The Occupy Parliament, citizens rise against overtaxation by the government, the flyers that were distributed according to the organizers, and that included the pastings on the walls of buildings, names of lawmakers. Social media has been the main platform through which Kenyans have been rallied to protest to ensure that the government hears the plight of Kenyans. Among the organizers included Boniface Mwangi, who said yesterday when we talked with him that we have notified the police. I even sent a message to the Inspector General of Police, Japheth Kome, informing him of our plans over the weekend. We will be in thousands, nothing less. We will fill all the streets in Nairobi. We will occupy Parliament, according to Boniface Mwangi, one of the organizers of the protest that you have seen at the moment happening in Nairobi's central business districts. The first march, according to the organizers, is to tell members of the National Assembly that the Kenyan people are watching them closely as to the voting pattern at the National Assembly, and this coming following days of messages that were sent by many Kenyans, the ordinary folks, to their representatives at the National Assembly, their lawmakers, to not pass the finance bill, and lawmakers coming out in public to also decry what they termed as a breach of their privacy in their numbers being shared on social media platforms. There are other calls which as well came from the men of God, and yesterday the Nyeri Archbishop Anthony Muheria addressed the press in Nyeri County, saying that the Kenyan people can no longer breathe, saying there's need for the government to review some of the contents as contained in the finance bill. He also urged lawmakers to be guided by their conscience and not other influences when the bill goes to Parliament. And we have seen the live pictures from the National Assembly. He said, let's not mince our words. We are overtaxing our people, and this disordered, disconnected, disjointed plan of increasing taxes or looking for new areas of getting taxes have had a negative impact on our economy, and it is going to seriously injure the ordinary Kenyan, according to Archbishop Anthony Muheria. He further went on to say that listen to the voices of the people, because the economic situation is very unfavorable. We are strained economically, he said, and our legislators should be guided by their conscience and not the other influences. He went on to say yesterday that the indispensable issue that must underpin all decisions of the government and any legislation must be the concern of effects that these things will have on the poor people. Anything we do as leaders, he went on, must have a major concern over the impact on the poor in this country. It is not about how much the Kenya Revenue Authority collects, it's about how our people can live a life worth living. And there are the chants of the protesters. This is near City Hall at the Nairobi Central Business District, where since morning we have seen the presence of police and the deployment of the contingent by the police in Nairobi to break up the protests that are in opposition to the Finance Bill 2024. On the split is also another part of the Central Business District, where the protests are also underway, and the police lobbing tear gas to break up and disperse the protesters who have since morning been protesting inside the Central Business District. It's the impact this is going to have on businesses that usually operate smoothly in the county's Central Business District, now affected by closures that are necessitated by fears of business vandalizing and also the loss of property. This largely borrowing and bordering on some of the events that happened in the aftermath of the opposition anti-government protests. And this was in relation to the Finance Bill 2023, when many businesses had borne the brunt of the protests, and that including the closure of businesses and the loss of billions of shillings by businesses in Nairobi's Central Business District. And the same seems to be apparent today in the Central Business District in Nairobi, where the protesters and the police are engaging in running battles. You're watching this coverage, and this is in relation to the Finance Bill 2024, the second reading coming up at the National Assembly as the committee sets to present its report to the National Assembly, and some of what many Kenyans had considered as punitive proposals have been dropped by the committee that is chaired by Molo MP Kuria Kimani. That includes the 16% value-added tax on bread, the 2.5% motor vehicle tax has also been removed, excise duty on vegetable oil also removed, and also the levies on the housing and social health will become income tax deductible, according to the chairperson of the committee, which then means that the levies will not attract income tax, putting much more money in the pockets of Kenyans and create more disposable income, according to the chairperson of the committee. And this, as Parliament is set to debate the committee's report this afternoon, and we'll be getting into the live proceedings at the National Assembly, where the members of the National Assembly will be debating the report by the Finance and National Planning Committee of the National Assembly and the reversion of the proposed taxes on bread, cooking oil, motor vehicle 2.5 circulation tax, and financial transactions and eco-levy, following the public pressure on the committee when presentations were made before it, and upon the conclusion of the public participation exercise, the pledge that was given by the chairperson and the lawmaker representing Molo constituency, Kuria Kimani, who said that it's not going to be just a process for the sake as the constitution envisages, but this will be meaningful, and given the submissions made by Kenyans before the committee, the alternatives and some of the proposals, the counter proposals that Kenyans had, will be taken into account. And upon conclusion of its sittings, it appears that the contentious proposals have been reviewed by the committee, but this is up until the National Assembly that will be debating at the second reading stage of the House whether these proposals have indeed been plucked out, according to the committee chairperson. And still, this will be subjected to a vote for the changes to take effect. Will Parliament listen to the people remains the main question. And you are watching the live pictures from Nairobi Central Business District, where security deployment since morning has seen the arrests of protesters who have been out and about at the Central Business District over the Finance Bill 2024, which according to them contains proposals that will have far-reaching consequences on the common mwananchi. At the National Assembly, the proceedings will be underway shortly, and we have seen the arrival of the National Assembly Speaker, Moses Masika Wetangula, and lawmakers as they make their voice clear on this ahead of the second reading, and how they are going to be responding to the changes that were made by the committee and its chairperson this morning, addressing the news conference from State House, where they had a parliamentary group meeting that was chaired by President William Ruto to chart a way forward for the ruling coalition members who all attended the meeting at State House as part of the Kenya Kwanza Alliance's move to ensure that all the lawmakers under the alliance support the proposals contained in the Finance Bill 2024, with Parliament now coming under sharp focus with regards to its not so heavy lifting and
Okay, 20. Okay, let's go. Central Police Station.
The press who are giving us all the accounts of the events happening at the Nairobi Central Business District, and since morning they have been giving us the blow-by-blow account of the events at the Central Business District in Nairobi County, where the protests have been happening and in opposition to some of the proposals contained in the Finance Bill 2024. And this, in effect, is in relation to the bill that seeks to amend 10 pieces of legislation and had projected to raise 347 billion to finance the 3.9 trillion budget for the 2024-25 financial year, as unveiled by the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary, Professor Njuguna Ndungu, on Thursday last week at the National Assembly. The laws that are earmarked for changing include the Value Added Tax Act, Income Tax Act, Excise Duty Act, the Tax Procedures Act, and the Miscellaneous Fees and the Levies Act. And one of the key proposals that were made before the committee was to doing away with the motor vehicle circulation tax, which they termed as double taxation and punitive, that cannot be met by all car owners in the country, which also depends on the type and the data of the car that you are using. And in relation to that, the article which provides for the voting in the National Assembly 122 and 123 on the decisions of the National Assembly and the Senate respectively, and here the proposed motor vehicle tax is a property rate that touches on the county governments. Only the counties can impose the tax and not the national government, according to one of the experts. This is a picture of police, and in custody is one of the employees of Governor Johnson Sakaja in Nairobi, and he's been taken to custody by police. On data protection, the section that targeted for amendment provision provides for the exemption in the administration of the Act. Section 51 of the Act provides that nothing in this part shall exempt any data controller or data processor from complying with data protection principles relating to lawful processing, minimization of collection, data quality, and nothing, and adopting security safeguards to protect personal data, according to those who are aggrieved. And the other part says that the process and the act which envisions relation to the processing of personal data by an individual in the case of purely personal or household activity. Let's now listen into the proceedings live on your screens at the moment of the protests at Situ. And you're watching the live proceedings from Nairobi Central Business District, where protests are underway in opposition to the finance bill and organized by a cross-section of Kenyans who are opposed to the contents of the finance bill, which they label as punitive and further suppress Kenyans in shrinking their income and pay slips, saying that those targeted are already overtaxed and that the introduction of the 2.5% motor vehicle circulation tax, which has since been reconsidered by the chairperson and the committee of the Finance and National Planning Committee of the National Assembly, saying that this is double taxation, given that Kenyans are already paying or have already paid or do already pay when they buy car here in Kenya, and the other operational costs which they termed as pressing for the public, and therefore their opposition that is coming a day as Parliament also is set to debate the report by the National Finance and National Planning Committee of the National Assembly during the second reading stage, and we have seen the proceedings that will be starting shortly at the National Assembly, when the Speaker of the House, Moses Wetangula, had arrived. And once the proceedings will be underway, then we will cross over there and listen in. But you're watching the live coverage from the Central Business District, where the protest still underway, and Kenyans, the cross-section of Kenyans who had organized this anti-finance bill 2024 protests, and in opposition to some of the proposals as contained in the bill. And Parliament will be debating the report by the Finance and National Planning Committee. And given what they term as effects that this will have on households across the country, given some of the proposals that were contained in the bill, and the organization of the protest that have started today, codenamed Occupy Parliament, and a majority of Kenyans concerned about the welfare of other Kenyans, saying Parliament is not playing its role as required, citing its past conduct and the less than impressive.
Amen. To reach the Ruto and his followers and pull every stronghold of the devil. This nation is God's gift to Kenyans. Kenyan generations. Kenyan generations. Fear not. Fear not. Let's be it for your future. And let us hear.
And there you go, a section of Kenyans who are part of the protesters expressing their anger and dissatisfaction at the proposals contained in the finance bill, some reversed ever since by the chairperson of the Finance and National Planning Committee, and which includes the 16% value-added tax on bread that the chairperson of the committee said had been removed, value-added tax on transportation of sugar also removed. The value-added tax on financial services and foreign exchange transactions has also been removed. There will be no increase on mobile money transfer, according to the chairperson. The 2.5% motor vehicle tax has also been removed. Excise duty on vegetable oil also removed. Levies on the housing and social health insurance funds will become income tax deductible. This means the levies will not attract income tax, putting the much more money into the pockets of employees. It's also crucial to point out, according to the chairperson, that the eco-levy is being levied on imported finished products. Locally manufactured products will therefore not attract the eco-levy. Locally assembled and manufactured, local assembly and manufacturing will help boost Kenya's manufacturing capacity, create jobs, and save foreign exchange. Consequently, locally manufactured products, including sanitary towels, diapers, phones, and computers, alongside tires and motorcycles, will attract the eco-levy. The threshold of the value-added tax registration has been increased from 5 million Kenya shillings to 8 million Kenya shillings, therefore meaning that many small businesses will no longer need to register for VAT. The responsibility for electronic invoicing (eTIMS) recently introduced by the Kenya Revenue Authority has been receded from farmers and small businesses with a turnover of 1 million Kenya shillings. Excise duty imposed on imported table eggs, onions, and potatoes to protect local farmers, according to the chairperson. He also pointed out excise duty on alcoholic beverages will now be taxed on the basis of alcohol content and not volume. The higher the alcohol content, the more excise duty it will attract. Consequently, alcohol manufacturers are expected to make safer and cheaper alcohol. Pension contributions exemption to increase from 20,000 Kenya shillings to 30,000. The parliamentary group meeting also informed that adequate funds of Kenya shillings have 18 billion. The protest ongoing at the Nairobi Central Business District since morning, and in protest to the Finance Bill 2024. This is the road that leads to the Supreme Court and also interlinks with Kenyatta Avenue, and the running battles between police and protesters since morning following the Occupy Parliament protest that was organized by a cross-section of Kenyans with varying views on the contents of the Finance Bill 2024, and they still protesting this in relation to their opposition and fierce criticism of the bill that will be the bill whose report following the conclusion of the public participation exercise will be tabled at the National Assembly shortly, where members of Parliament are expected to debate, and a heated session is a likely outcome of that, given what has been playing out in the public domain. And the Azimio Coalition, a political party, also issued a press conference news conference which was the statement issued by Embakasi East lawmaker Babu Owino and his counterpart from Starehe, Amos Mwago, who called on the police from desisting to use violence against civilians. Several have been arrested, and they have called for their unconditional release from prison. And you can see police continuing to lob tear gas into the protesters at the Nairobi Central Business District, which seems to be are no goes on at the moment with businesses that are shut. One of the consequences of the protests once they happen in Nairobi Central Business District, and how they will be bearing the consequence of today's event, given the businesses that do operate in Nairobi Central Business District. And we are seeing a group of young Kenyans organizing themselves, and since morning have been staging this protest to protest the proposal contained in the Finance Bill 2024. And shortly we'll be getting the live links from Parliament before the proceedings at the floor of the House start.
It is the police officers who are rioting. The demonstrators are peaceful.
The protest still underway in Nairobi. It started morning, and in protest against the finance bill and the contentious proposals contained in the bill that was brought and subjected to a public participation, where there was intense criticism of some of the contentious proposals as contained therein. A majority of Kenyans presenting before the National Assembly's Planning and Finance and National Planning Committee regarding the proposals terming that as punitive. Let's listen into the proceedings at the Central Business District.
Mkae mzuri tu. Songa huko mwisho. Songa huko mwisho. Panopa kada mwisho kabisa kalia kitu. Hapo kabisa. Unasema nini? Unasema nini madam? Say something.
Cheki situapeleke KFC mputulie kiasi. Comrade. Kimekuramba?
Imenilamba.
Nimwambie sorry. Pole sana.
Mwache tu ndani ya gari tukishaleta tunawaomba.
Askari ameongea vizuri.
Wewe. Si record.
Comrade, sema kitu.
Wewe so leo niko kwa news.
Pardon? Wabunge watusaidie.
Tufanye shughuli.
Fanya shughuli. Ni mnafurahia venye Kenya iko? Are you happy with the way Kenya is? How Kenya is doing? Are you happy?
Ni ile mlichagua.
Ile tu watu walichagua.
Ni yenye watu walichagua.
Hebu muongeleze mwana.
Ile tu wale ile uchaguzi.
You're watching the live pictures from the Nairobi Central Business District on a Tuesday filled with events as it kick-started with a parliamentary group meeting at State House in Nairobi, where members of the Kenya Kwanza coalition had met, and in a meeting that was chaired by President William Ruto, which came up with the raft of the reviews made to the Finance Bill 2024 by the Finance and National Planning Committee, whose chairperson, Kuria Kimani, who as well as the lawmaker representing Molo constituency, had issued the press statement at State House in Nairobi. And also a day that equally was underpinned by the early morning protest up until now active in the Central Business District, organized by a cross-section of Kenyans in opposition to some of the contentious proposals contained in the bill. And this follows the conclusion of the public participation exercise, which last happened a week ago at the Kenyatta International Convention Center, where ordinary Kenyans, industry players and experts have all expressed concern about some of the impacts that some contentious proposals are likely going to yield in the event the bill will be passed by the National Assembly unamended or unchanged, and to which on the final day the chairperson of the committee had pledged Kenyans that this isn't a mere cosmetic exercise, but all the submissions and the proposed changes will be taken to effect. Let's listen in.
Tumekataa.
Ruto must go.
Tumekataa.
Mpitishe kwa hiari yao. Tumekataa.
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 Tumekataa. Tumekataa. Tumekataa. Tumekataa.
Unashikiwa mkate. Unashikiwa mkate po. Amepiga mzee hii. Anapiga nduru. Ndio mnapiga nduru kutulivu. Nani wana protest? Nani amepiga hiyo blank nayo? Amepiga blank kwa kamera.
And also a day that was equally filled by events that you have witnessed right on your screens of the arrests made by the police who are deployed since early morning, and of the protesters who have been at the Central Business District. A day that also will see all eyes trained on the National Assembly ahead of the tabling of the report by the Finance and National Planning Committee of the National Assembly upon the conclusion of its retreat in Naivasha, where it went to write the final report. And I'll be reading to you some of the reviews done by the committee, who communicated through its chairperson, Kuria Kimani. And that will be set for the second reading ahead of tabling shortly, with the parliamentary session underway following the presence we witnessed of lawmakers who had streamed in, and also the Speaker of the National Assembly, Moses Masika Wetangula. And the bill, which seeks to amend 10 pieces of legislation and projects to raise about 347 billion to finance the 3.9 trillion budget for the 2024-25 financial year, as unveiled by the Treasury Cabinet Secretary Professor Njuguna Ndungu on Thursday last week. The laws that are earmarked for changes include the Value Added Tax Act, the Income Tax Act, the Excise Duty Act, the Tax Procedures Act, and the Miscellaneous Fees and the Levies Act. But there are questions as to how the government will meet its projections, given that some reviews were made in regards to the proposals that were earlier contained in the bill before the public participation exercise. And how then the government will get the alternative funding of the 347, which was initially the projected revenue to the government had planned to raise from the 2024 finance bill. And this is in relation to the common factor in all this since morning at State House, the PG, and then the street protests which are active up until now, and the session at the National Assembly which is underway, all about the Finance Bill 2024, and coming less than a year, more of a year since the 2023 Finance Bill that led to also anti-government protests across the country, then organized by the opposition coalition, a political party that is Azimio. But this appears to be a different one altogether, with a cross-section of Kenyans coming out in protest against the proposals that they term as contentious and punitive, and will have far-reaching consequences on households, on businesses. And there are more than 500 memoranda from Kenyans and other interested parties that were submitted before the committee, before the conclusion of the public participation exercise. Many warning of massive job losses in the event some of the proposals will pass, and the fear of capital flight from the Kenyan market, which will have a large and far-reaching consequence in terms of job creation and the dependency, the massive layoffs, which may end up depleting the pockets of Kenyans. And the live pictures you are seeing is related to that of police who continue to keep guard across the Central Business District, and the protests. Some arrests have been made, and the opposition coalition political party Azimio issued a press conference through Embakasi East lawmaker Babu Wino and his Starehe counterpart, who called for the immediate arrests of those who have been immediate release of those who have been taken to custody by the security agencies. Let's first start off with the earlier press statement from State House in Nairobi that was issued by the chairperson of the Finance and National Planning Committee, Kuria Kimani, who addressed the Kenyan public who are waiting in anticipation that press statement from State House following the conclusion of the parliamentary group meeting chaired by President William Ruto.
We are all in agreement that there are two things that we must do. One of them is that we need to protect Kenyans from increased cost of living, and therefore the proposed 16% VAT on bread has been dropped. To support, again, on reducing the cost of living, we are doing something about vegetable oil so that we do not make it expensive for Kenyans. Transfer of mobile services is a key concern to many Kenyans, and therefore, again, we have proposed that we do not have any increase on taxation on mobile phone transfer. We have seen in the recent past the proposals that we've made on statutory deductions on SHIF and housing levy has added a loan on especially on salaried Kenyans, and therefore we have proposed that those statutory deductions now be allowable to pay, so they will not pay an additional pay on those. On motor vehicle tax, inasmuch as we agree that there is need to have money allocated to maintain our roads, and those people that are using our road more and causing TNA on our roads should contribute more towards fixing those roads, we have agreed that the motor vehicle tax cannot be amended through an income tax act, and also pegging it on insurance would cripple the insurance business and make it very difficult, especially for those Kenyans who take third-party insurance, and therefore that proposal has been dropped.
You will notice from the changes that will be proposed by the chair in the report that you tabled this afternoon, we are devoting more money back into people's pockets, especially the employed Kenyans who have been contributing to the housing levy. The housing levy has been proposed together with the Social Health Insurance Fund, the National Social Security Fund, and now the housing levy to be tax deductible. And that will ensure that what will be subjected to pay as you earn will be an amount less than what was there before. And therefore, more disposable income will be going to many employed Kenyans. The second thing that we intend to do is to encourage savings and investments in our country. Through the proposals that the chair has stipulated in terms of pensions, the allowable deductions that have been increased for pensions contributions. There's also an allowable deduction on post-retirement medical schemes to ensure that people start saving for their post-retirement, and those post-retirement savings or contributions into a medical scheme to cater for your medical care after retirement will be tax deductible and therefore tax-free.
That is the earlier press statement issued by the chairperson of the Finance and National Planning Committee of the National Assembly, Kuria Kimani, and also the leader of the majority party at the National Assembly, Kimani Ichung'wah, after the conclusion of the parliamentary group meeting at State House, the early morning PG that was chaired by President William Ruto, which also, among other things, will see levies on the housing fund and social health insurance to become income tax deductible, which means that the levies will not attract income tax, putting, according to the chairperson of the committee, more money in the pockets of employees. It is crucial, he pointed out also, to point out that the eco-levy is being levied on imported finished products. Locally manufactured products will therefore, according to the committee chairperson, not attract the eco-levy. He added local assembly and manufacturing will help boost Kenya's manufacturing capacity, create jobs, and save foreign exchange. Consequently, the locally manufactured products, including sanitary towels, diapers, phones, computers, tires, and motorcycles, will not attract the eco-levy, according to the chairperson of the committee. The threshold for VAT registration has been increased from 5 million Kenya shillings to 8 million, which therefore, according to the committee, means that many small businesses will no longer need to register for the value-added tax. The responsibility of electronic invoicing, e-TIMS, as popularly known, recently introduced by the Kenya Revenue Authority, has been receded from farmers and small businesses with a turnover of below 1 million Kenya shillings. Excise duty imposed on imported table eggs, onions, and potatoes to protect local farmers. Excise duty on alcoholic beverages will now be taxed on the basis of the alcohol content and not volume. The higher the alcohol content, the more the excise duty it will attract, the chairperson saying. Consequently, alcohol manufacturers are expected to make safer and cheaper alcohol. And this is in relation to the statement that the chairperson of the committee had issued. The parliamentary group meeting also informed the Kenyan people that adequate funds of 18 billion have been provided for the employment of 46,000 junior secondary school teachers who are on internship, that is then to permanent and pensionable, And the President also this morning, we understand, had informed the parliamentary group meeting that the executive and the legislature will continue making the right decisions, no matter how difficult they are. And he has been on that trajectory for some time now, since coming to power in August 2022, saying that he is not in any way going to make decisions that are popular in appeasing the Kenyan public, but hard decisions, however, he may be disliked and even branded names, according to him. He pointed out, the President, that his last year's proposals in the Finance Bill 2023 have led to tremendous progress. The head of state concluding by commending national institutions for working effectively in a democratic country. The National Assembly has changed the finance bill that was prepared earlier as per the proposals that were contentious and contained therein. Let's now cross over to Parliament Live and listen in to the proceedings
of the second reading of that bill. Honourable Speaker, there is also priority business.